big crowd. Kind of expected that. So, I'm Eric Leach. A lot of people know me, but not necessarily everybody does. Quick bio on me and why I'm standing here. I've lived in the village for 25 years. I live at Boston Auditorium. I do the Halloween stuff. And I volunteered and worked with the Shin Musical Company for like 25 years or so. So, none of that really anything specifically, other than I kind of like all cover a lot of different bases on all this. So I am on the board, and we've been hearing things about how the auditorium is being used and how the VM continuing to grow, which is great, but how that impacts the village. So we thought it would be a good idea to have a conversation. So that's what I'm doing. If you've attended some of our other sessions, workshops, I am absolutely not trying to make this that. So I also come from a management consulting background, so I see that in front of people on my boards all the time. I think that's better for like discussion and working through details and coming together than our, very government approach, which is you stand up and get 1 minute, you sit down and you speak again, and then we ignore you while they talk. So I don't want to do that. So the entire goal for this evening is to be as interactive as possible and get as much discussion as possible. And I'm kind of the host, if you will. So I've got some rules of the road and things that I like to get out just to make sure we're all on the same page. None of this is set in stone. It's all sort of free-form, but I try to put some structure in place so we're not. Okay. I'll grab this first. And I just wrote this down. I mean, this is from the standpoint, I think, and it's pretty simple, of the board, which we just want to use this session as an information gathering process, right? Like, so you hear people, they text you when you're walking. Gary needs to have a survey. We've done surveys before. Surveys are very helpful, but it's also good to be able to have a conversation. So that's, again, why we're doing this. My board members, you guys looking for anything else specific or need anything else specific other than just sort of general information gathering for now? We're not making hardcore calls to the cities tonight. Okay. So I think I talked about this a little bit, but I guess I did demonstrate that while I didn't have a really nice resume, also, I don't stall very well, so you guys so we kind of have a list of topics, just general areas that we sort of like to group things in. So I'm going to try to guide us that way. But I want to make sure that we get a lot of conversation going on the topics, and there's a lot of crossover. And as I said, it's very fluid. I'm learning where we go. So what I'll do is I'm going to talk about our list of topics a bit. Then I kind of want to just do like the brainstorming session. Classic brainstorming. Hey, what do you guys think about this? Let's get some ideas out there. And then I want to sort of, you can iterate on that for that. So we just want to get like an impulse and talk about things, think about things. And then I would look to try to kind of work on what we kind of generally think are the most important, least important, that kind of thing. And then as we get into that, maybe, get into like details and specifics and maybe things the board needs to consider for policies. So I would do that like multiple times. So that's sort of how I'm working this out. And my last one, which I managed to not spell correctly, so this is a discussion. Absolutely want to get that going. But with a group this big and there are strong opinions in the village, small village, big opinions. So we definitely want everybody to be polite and respectful. So we want to tackle the problems, not people. Right? We don't want to be sniping each other because at the end of the day, we're going to walk out here and walk our dogs and look for each other's cats and all that kind of stuff. So keep it polite and respectful. And this last piece here, which is speak for yourself, as we're talking, it's kind of easy sometimes to say things like, those guys don't like this, or the village doesn't like that. That's so vague, it's not really helpful. I want you to talk through what you're seeing and what you want us to think about. So it's really about I see, if you will. And then, I said after this, right? So It's really easy in a big group like this to get like sidebar conversations going on, which I'm not going to try to please overly much unless you guys start fist fighting back corner. But you know, so try to keep that under control and also keep a little bit of focus, right? So limit the side conversations and let's sort of focus on what people are saying. And then my last one here is, you know, see on the board, the way that works, people stand up and they have a seat and the visions, the topics, and they sit down and don't say anything else. We don't need speeches, we need discussion, right? So like what you'll start seeing, and I brought all kinds of colorful markers, is I'm going to try to capture what you're saying. So if somebody says, I'm going to make a negative, right? Like when we talk about like the auditorium, somebody will talk about parking and speeding, because that's always up there. I don't need everybody to stand and say, my number one issue is speeding. I already broke it down. Right? Like it's like, hey, yeah, that is definitely an issue. No, I'm not talking about something else. Right? That don't need to be all right. I get excited when I stand in front of big groups. Let me take a deep breath. Any questions, comments, anything anybody would like to add? Okay. So I'm going to put these up out of the way. Those are mine. Okay. So here's what I'd like to start with. So I kind of expect this will take a couple hours. We don't have a schedule, please comment where we need to. If we find this is really useful, the board has already said if we can have another session, we can drill down into other things, or into things more deeply, or topics we miss. So I'm going to check out this temperature sort of halfway through, and then the end to see where we went. So again, deep breath. Here's what I'd like everybody to do for just a second. Break out your drums and we're going to do a drum circle. Yeah. No. Okay, so deep breath. I want you to all, if you want to close your eyes, we're all really proud of our village. I haven't met anybody from around Lake who isn't proud of their village. So take a deep breath and think about, for just 30 seconds here, what is it about the village that you find special? One thing, two things, doesn't matter. I'm going to try to get you into that, and I will shut up everything. Anybody, throw something out there. Do it.
Multi-generations of families that live here, and at the same time, multi-age kids that are all hanging out and playing together at the park, basketball courts, all the places.
Already inspired. Right, I like that. Fantastic. Thank you very much for getting started.
It's a safe community to be yourself.
Okay.
Safe enough for our kids to have freedom.
Freedom for kids, is that good? Okay. Yeah.
That we have a really deep and rich heritage.
We have to use heritage. I asked you. That's so AGE, close enough.
Yeah.
My bad writing is also a defense that if you can't read my writing, you can't tell if it's incorrect or stuff.
We all have co-ownership, or we all competition for each other. Co-ownership is not the right word. We all vision.
I was going to go with code.
Yeah, you run it.
Okay, so support family,
Yeah,
support for
support,
families.
like, at events, and like, if someone sees Sarah speeding down the street on a bicycle, they might tell her to get on the side of the
Okay, I'll give you guys just a second.
I love the people in my neighborhood, which is basically the village of Fremont. I love where I live.
Yes. Traditions? Excellent, okay. What, when you say traditions, what do you think of?
Like the turkey trot and Christmas tree lighting.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Yes, ma'am?
The diversity of talents, we haven't lived here even a year yet, but people who are particularly in the arts, but just the diversity and the ages that it's promoted into, from the littles, like in open mic night we experience, like the tinies to the oldest, but everybody's encouraged to be them. And we've had neighbors and all sides and corners of the village already offer us something different things, so it's been wonderful.
Fantastic. Welcome to the village, by the way.
Think so?
You were.
Yes.
Okay, let's say second, you know, deep breath. What frustrates you about the village? Everybody's super happy.
Speeding in and out of the village. I love all your little houses that are tight together, that are coming down to the firehouse. I respect your speed limits, but I know it comes down to the fast mile and what goes out the past our way farmhouse.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
So that's a frustration, speed limit?
It is, because we thought it was a quiet little village. We were retiring to.
Yeah, that's a long standing, but shoot people's tires out. Parking. I'm surprised that was number two. What's name number two always? Okay, anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
There's often too many opinions, and sometimes people get very disrespectful.
Active listening and what you respect. Yep.
The lack of a centralized calendar.
Lack of centralized calendar. So you know what's going on?
So I know what's going on, like, even if I'm not involved in the event or interested in the event's not open, it's nice to know, like, what the auditorium's gonna be used for and when it's gonna be used. I live right across the street, it can be really loud. Or if I'm interested in an event, most of the time, I hear about it from all different sources. There's no just like centralized source of truth for that.
Yeah. Centralized source of truth is good too. I like that. Source of truth. Source of truth.
Lack of, I don't want to say police presence, but a lot of older kids doing a lot of crazy stuff that they just kind of run wild. Not young kids, but you know, smoking pot and stuff out here and stuff. So I wish there was more control of that, where somebody's coming by and telling them, hey, move it, you know.
Yes, I'll grab two more and then three more and then I'll stop. Jason.
Lack of maintaining the structures and buildings that we have.
Improving communication amongst the boards, village, auditorium, everything.
Poor communication?
Improving,
Improving.
yeah.
Improving.
Because
Yeah.
frustration-
Poor communication and frustration.
Lack.
And maybe it's a lack thereof.
The village processes seem to be either competing or non-existent. So the way the village conducts its business is a lot, what the chain of command is often confusing.
Sorry, competing.
Chain of command. Chain of command or maybe you use it, whichever we modify that. All right, I don't want us to spend the whole time talking about our frustrations, because everybody's frustrated. This is a good general list, covers a bunch of areas. Okay, the reason I did this is I want us to now move on to the other topic, the topic of the evening, which is auditorium. And did you got that?
I think so.
Yeah, I was going to do that too. Make sure you got it. Thank you very much. What was that? Oh, so now I'm going to talk about our next topic. We're going to talk about the auditorium. I'm going to try to break it down into a couple pieces because the auditorium fit big. So first, I'd like to spend just a few minutes talking about the auditorium in general. the survey came out, a lot of people answered that. 149? 120. So a decent number of things for that. Do we have a plan? Are we gonna send that out at some point, or not on the whole list?
I sent it out,
To us, but they know.
I sent it
On Monday, when
Oh,
I
yeah.
said
the preliminary one, 18 responses from that one.
Okay, so there's a survey, that's very helpful. So I'm gonna talk, see if we can dig down some of those topics. Then I'm gonna talk about Arcadia a little bit, because Arcadia is, for lack of a better term, kind of umbrella in our summer with all the events, all the activity around that. And then we also want to talk about how people want to approach the structure, because the structure is old in New York. So we need to talk about that a bit and how we want to start balancing these things, because if you're working on the building, you need to get close to the events, how we use our funds as a village, all those kind of things come into play. So that's a lot. So okay. So let's talk, sort of as we did. We got a good picture of this, right?
Yes. Step first person.
Is general use of the auditorium. So let's talk about what people like to see and what people would prefer not to see. And what I would like to do, since we just spent the effort to go through what we love about the village and what we dislike about the village, is what part is the auditorium play? So if there are certain events you like, how does it build the community? How does it involve the kids? I just erased everything so I can remember it all, but right. Everybody has a picture of me.
Oh.
All right, so use of the auditorium, I'll just call it that. And I'm talking sort of generally. Thoughts, questions? Use of the auditorium, exciting.
I guess, are you looking for like things that were like on the survey, like the same types of like new stuff? New, like, yeah. Like I guess I'm confused about like when you're saying use, do you want us to say like, we love like midnights, we love Caribbean, we
Yeah.
this, like what we put on the survey, like the same thing?
Yeah, like this, so let me answer the question. If we go to the survey, and I can talk about the survey a bit, right? So if we love the reminders, more or less of them. How do you, they're kind of monthly, and I'm not volunteering to run the reminders, but I mean, do you want more of that kind of thing? How do people feel? Is that very important to the village?
That's an important part, I think, is, yeah, you might want something a lot, but the use of the auditorium is not going to run more with them. Is it going to be something where we say, someone else will do it? Because you might want something, but who's going to do it?
Right, and also like once a month it gets a good turnout, but if you're doing too much, then people are like, I don't think they're going to say another one next week, so.
Right.
But I like open mic night,
All right,
I love Caribbean,
right.
for the kids.
Okay, so we're at Arcadia, of course, and open mic nights. Let me drill down on open mic nights for a second. And this is going to get too conceptual and maybe useless. I don't know when to find out. It's kind of a, how do I put it? It's kind of free form, right? Like it's open to everybody in the community. Everybody can kind of join in or not join. It's not very structured. Maybe that's what I would say. So are there other sort of non-structured things we would like to see more of? I mean, are movie nights more, kind of less structured and you can come together, that kind of thing? Okay.
But how do we find out about them? Like we've missed other movie nights we didn't know where to look for posting, kind of like someone said over there. You know, we're up at the firehouse and we're trying to get to know everybody, but we saw the tickets, it was a purchase item, like open mic was kind of there, but we didn't see any posters anywhere, you know, where to look for movie nights. We hear about them after the fact. I love movies. I would literally go to a movie every Friday night.
Okay, well, that's good. That goes to the one comment that we just started.
Communication of awareness.
Communication. Say what?
I like open mic because everyone can do it and nobody will
Nobody will what?
judge.
Oh, yeah, nice. Okay. So, like, I don't know, what would be, what else do we do in the auditorium that was similar to that? Like art events, Halloween events? Organ. Organ's pretty structured, right? Like, we don't let everybody go up there and play the organ. Yeah, so that was,
I think Halloween's pretty structured too.
organ is super
But it is
cool.
sort of a Kaluga.
Oh,
You don't have to like buy anything.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like-
What are
Yeah.
some, yeah,
You're not happy.
yeah, but,
Yeah.
a cart museum is tickets. I don't know where we're really.
Okay, so this is my idea when we go back to. Right now, we're talking about sort of the open mic kind of thing, and I would call this the less structured ones. Okay? Yeah. So we'll say carpe diem for next, and it's super important. Thank you so much.
What about, I mean, we're new, you're mentioning this is leading to repairs and how to use it and all that, how do you pay for it as a small village too, without updating everybody's taxes? I'm an artist, like what about some more looser informal auctions of like things that we do? I know there's potters and I'm an artist, painter and other things, like we have surplus things in our studios. But other people, we have the book sale, but what about maybe an art sale? Or an auction of house items or whatever, it's money for these repairs.
I
Like,
used to have them at the,
Barbecue. Yeah, we used to,
auction.
right, the barbecue would occasionally, not want to say occasionally, sometimes in the past, did have like a silent auction as a part of it that people were donating.
And a lot of it was art items.
Yeah.
Barbecue, yes.
Barbecue,
Sure.
at
Fun
that's
to
like a small field.
And those,
Books
down.
Okay.
Night illumination.
Yeah, so there's like the night of illumination. Those are probably like what I would consider, how do I say this? I don't want to say it's not non-structural. Night of illumination is Halloween and my line fit together, and then it's like huge crowds doing a lot of stuff. And it's less like getting up and singing or a lot of individual interaction. I don't know, it's a different without distinction. It's just a little bit okay.
I think that's also because you see a lot of the background when you do things like Halloween and night illumination, you see how much work goes into that. It's not just, now we'll open the doors and people can come up and see the art or eat a barbecue or watch a movie. Halloween and night illumination takes months of work to get it together.
Yeah. I'm just gonna call it we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Sure. And then I'll grab you and then I'm gonna move us off.
I just have to say, we have a national historic landmark in that auditorium.
We do.
We did, national, like Mount Rushmore and the Round Lake or same list. And we truly need to bring that and share it with people that we have this treasure here in this auditorium.
Yeah, we do we do shows, what, 2 or 3 of them in September?
Well,
And Scott did a great job this year. There's so many tours.
our tour was so big.
There's so
There's tours of the organ, there's concerts of the organ, there's Scott's historic tours, there's David runs the tea tours.
Danielle, please.
Just 2 things. One is the silent movie with the organ accompanying it should be our priority to bring our young children through our elderly people enjoyment of how movies started back in the 1900s without anything, and to hear this wonderful organ sound like thunder in that building. It's a shame it's not being done. And the second thing I wanted to say for use of the auditorium that does not require any structure is that when we lose somebody in our village, and it is an opportunity, we will go to that auditorium, we will set up tables, we will have a celebration of life for those dearly departed. And that should be always available for us for that, always, with room for tables.
Okay.
Put out.
Okay, absolutely.
Huh?
I'm just curious, I'm just wondering
And there's no charge.
if it makes sense to make a distinction between our traditions and then the events in the auditorium, which can be separate. I know every year we have our traditions, but every year the calendar at the auditorium changes. So, you know,
Yeah,
there
so
are some
like,
things that we're doing by default as tradition, and then the other conversation is how to use the auditorium for additional events.
right, so like Halloween has become a tradition, night illumination is certainly a tradition.
Yep.
And then illumination's on the calendar, because like that's open to anyone to come to at 8 o'clock, so there's illumination.
Actually,
Right?
they have illumination on the stairs for the
Yes.
bus, right? Yeah.
It was on the calendar.
Oh, this calendar, yes.
Like the auditorium calendar, like,
Yes.
like what's available at the
Yes.
auditorium.
The not fully fleshed out, centralized source of truth.
That one is on the internet. I did see that one there.
Okay, I'm gonna move on. I'm sorry.
This
So-
was a little something.
Say it.
That's fine.
Okay. All right, so now I want to move and start talking about, I'm going to call them the structured things. And you guys work really hard to schedule music events, where you sell tickets. Carpe Diem rents out the whole thing, does a ton of work, has all the kids, has all the shows. So I would consider those sort of, I don't know the better term is with the structure. Right? So are we happy, do we have any thoughts on so hold off on Carpe Diem? That's my last topic, that said that's the big one. Anything else about, any thoughts on the, paper tickets events? Happy with those generally? It seemed like looking at the survey, we're pretty happy with that. That was my sense. There's a variety, people can come to it. A centralized calendar would still be good. I'm saying that a lot. Okay. All right. And going on,
But are you asking for feedback on what are you asking? Like for feedback on the less structured events now? Is that
No,
what
I was asking about like the events that we have where we sell tickets. if you wanna call them. So the music events, in the past we have, and this is a while ago, we have the circus, we have the Around the Lake artists, we have the puppetry, like there's like, it depends on kind of how far you can go back with the variety of things and some of the things. Any thoughts on those? We happy with those?
So I'll start off, I'll say some live comedians would be cool to add to the roster.
Okay. Like long and distant past, we may have had a couple, but that was. Okay.
Outside, we saw when we were looking for a house last year before we purchased it, we had a wonderful Shakespeare troupe come in from outside that was hilarious.
Was that last year or this year?
It was last year. Last year, last summer.
Yeah.
When we
That's
were-
not a year or so.
We were looking at
Okay. Hey, good.
It's hard, it's suddenly
The puppet show, the park, the Malta Park, children used to be bused down for puppet shows and events in the afternoon during their camp day. It was a nice experience.
the puppet people, they were called.
All right, so those are popular items. Okay. Let's stop there again. Yes,
We are like a little Chicago, and I would love to see a wonderful lecture series going on there.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm not. So. Where to start? Well, what do you guys think?
Love Carpe Diem.
Okay, good. Tell me about what you love about Carpe Diem.
My kids have gone since Joe Shaver, had it when it was smaller, but, they get so much confidence, stage time. Theater can be very competitive. It's hard to create a supportive environment with theater. When you have kids that want to do that, you don't want them to get into places where, they're 9, 10 years old and they're crying and, whatever. And, theater is theater, but it's a very supportive environment, and having that right here as like a no-brainer, just to send your kids. I didn't know about it when we moved here, but it was a no-brainer once we found out about it.
going to use the consultant term, pull on that thread, which is, it's convenient. How does it link with the village and the things we want to talk about, the community and those kind of things? So I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but I'm warning everybody else I'm coming for.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just the kids that could show up today, and most kids had activities today. But I was trying to count, I got to 30 kids real quick that participated in Party in the village. So it's not a handful of kids. I mean, our whole community of kids who are artistic do this program. Not everybody.
And as somebody who, I took my kid to Caribbean when she was 2, just because, yeah, it was convenient, but it was also cool to walk her in the stroller to the village and watch the shows and watch the kids. And she watched that and then eventually was like, can I try it? And I think part of why she wanted to try it was because it wasn't an auditorium that she knew, that she loved, that she felt safe and comfortable in. I had asked her, do you want to go to the ones at Shen? Do you want to go to the Nope. But I think there was that comfort level there. And then interestingly, over time, I know the numbers have gotten bigger, but so have the numbers of the kids in the village that are willing to do it. I mean, my son almost did it. My son is like, oh, sports. But he was like, I don't know, all my friends do it. I feel like maybe I should try it too. And I know that it's given, we're talking about like multi-age kids all coming together. You know, our kids have all gotten to know some of the older kids in the village on a different level. They've bonded together differently. They've known kids at grade level, at 2 grades levels ahead. Kids in middle school and elementary school, they all know each other and they've gotten that bond from that. And I will also say that there's definitely, on behalf of Grady and Vandy, who have taken over since 2020, huge communication with the parents in the village. What can we do to be supportive of the village? What can we do to be considerate of the village? What can we do? They ask us all the time. We say it's a problem with the pickup. They change the entire pickup process. They put out videos to the families. We say people are speeding. You know, I had neighbors around there being like, there's Brady out there, like slow down. Like they put a sign up that said 10 miles an hour. And I'm overhearing people say they can't just make up the speed limit, but they're trying. You know, I do feel like with the parents of people in the village, they've been very much like, what can we do to help? So I just wanted to put that out there.
So
I'll come back to you in a second, Sharon.
endlessly about sort of the benefit of car radium to my kids, or just honestly how amazing and magical the program is compared to any other career program that we've participated in. But even before we were doing car radium, before he was old enough, there's the sound of singing in the village on a summer's night. Literally kids walking down the street and they're not looking at their phones, they're singing, we are happy, or they're singing something down the street. Like, there is something really magical about having beautiful things happening with kids in the village, the sound of songs, and kids are doing something productive. They're literally building a whole production. And they're not on their phone, they do have phones, but they're not spaced out kids that you might see elsewhere. There's kind of wonderful things happening. So it really has felt magical. I don't live on the auditorium circle, but I live where all the parents work, and the kids walk back and forth every morning, and it's really nice.
Okay, so I'm going to hit the unit second, Sharon, and come to you and see. Let me see if I can say something. So it builds community. Having it in the village builds community, certainly involves the kids, and that's important to all parties. I got to talk to them. I already know them twice. Sharon.
I think that it's amazing that everybody in this village, all the children, have the opportunity to work with a level of professionalism that happens with our radio.
Cool. Nancy?
2 things. I've worked around the auditorium doing my silly gardening stuff and watched and listened to things that are happening. And the kind of self-confidence building activities that don't have anything to do with the play itself is absolutely amazing. And having been a teacher since, I don't know how long ago, it is at that age level to develop that kind of confidence is unbelievable. And I kind of watch, and sometimes there are kids who are quiet and not jumping in, but by the end of the activity, they are. And it's so supportive. And the second thing is, these kids think the auditorium is the coolest place in the world. And what a better way to start them young, seeing what a great building this is and how wonderful it is. I love that.
All right, I'm coming over here, and I'm coming back over here, so you guys, when I see you guys, see what I'll get. I'm gonna go for first.
Well, I don't think I would really be into acting if it wasn't for video, because I totally did it, and so I wanted to try it, and at first I was scared, but it built up my confidence, and now I'm like thinking about trying out for like my school play or other things as well.
Awesome. Okay.
I want to associate myself with what Nancy just said. I love sitting on my porch and hearing the kids sing, and I love the transformation from the first day and hearing their less tutored voices to the end, and they sound magnificent. And you really do get a sense of how these kids are just growing as individuals and as little artists. It's a joyful noise. And I have to say that as somebody who lives right on that circle, I've noticed over the years how Carpathian has been very responsive to our concerns about parking and the traffic when they drop the kids off. So I think they've proven to be good neighbors.
How does that link with the things we're talking about, that make the village special? How do you find Carpathian and everything you talk about brings up the village?
Which of us wouldn't have loved having a summer camp experience that we could walk to? I mean, really, I think about how much that enriches the lives of the kids and the families, that they've got a place they can walk to for their summer camp experience. It's just, I just think it builds a connection in the village. It's amazing to me how many adult children move back into town to live near their parents. And I don't think they're moving here to live near their parents. I think they're living here because they love their childhood and they want their kids to have this childhood. And I think that's just a really special part of what the village is, and having kids, but I love seeing the kids experience that sense of community that they're building in the village.
Very well said, you should go involved.
Kind of like Larry said, I saw my friends doing Carpathian, and I decided to give it a try, and I was nervous, but then I got comfortable with the answers and everything, and I think it's a really good opportunity for kids to want to get involved in the future.
Cool. Excellent. I'm going this way, then I'll come back to you. Yeah. Okay, Sean, I have you next.
I just wanted to piggyback, but everybody's kind of, we're talking about the auditorium, but you never see the auditorium more alive than the garbage. Just the sound, looking around, and the kids smiling that are watching their friends do what they're doing. Which is the, piggyback to that, the auditorium, if you're looking at it as a being, you want to do it, it's just, that has enhanced it, that has made it what it used to be, maybe 200 feet.
Awesome. I'm coming for you next. And I'm getting to get mauled too.
Okay, that problem, I don't have a problem with Carpathian on the program. My problem is with the expansion. The original owner, Joe Schaefer, had 60 kids from Round Lake and Boston Spa. That was a community camp. Now we've tripled the number of kids. They're from over 14 schools. They've increased the number of performances. They've tripled the traffic, the noise, the parking problems. Their income's over $400,000, but they certainly could get probably benefit from a bigger venue. They could sell more tickets, raise more money. I think it would benefit them to have a bigger, because I think they've outgrown Round Lake with their expansion. Tripling the size of the kids is just too much for Round Lake. It's a residential area, it's not a commercial area. We don't have the parking, we don't have the infrastructure.
Right, so I think Ed mentioned a bunch of things, all of which I think are relevant. I think right now, let's just look at the expansion. I think I'm going to come back to, let's talk about the growth of Carpathian and how we mitigate any issues. Like as you said, you guys will work hard, but you never solve everything 100%, so what can we do to make things better going forward? So that's how I'm gonna phrase that. And so I'm gonna hit these two, because I know them. No. Oh, okay, Sean. And then I'm gonna come to you.
This is just a quick comment to parking people, how we want to. Antiques festival. There's a ton of cars. That's what I'm for the apartments. There's other things that happen within the village that figure it out.
That create the same problem. That's also 3 days.
And we utilize though, I mean, yeah, once upon a time it was smaller, so people only parked in the parking lot on the Zim and maybe the church parking lot. Now they use the Zim, the parking lot, the church lets us use the parking lot, use the ball fields, like, we found other parking lots too, so as there have been more people. Ever since this started, you're always gonna get people for any event, people coming to the village that just don't care about what the rules are and they're just gonna do everything else. And that happens no matter what.
I generally personally believe there's 10% that you can think of. What you're saying.
We'll go. Or whoever you.
I will come for you in a second, John. Molly and Sam.
So I just wanted to say firstly, obviously, like I would not have the experience that I do without Parfait. If you support me as a singer, then you by default support me. So support Parfait, because that is where I learned like the foundation of what I know now. That's why I do what I do at Shen. That's expanded a lot of opportunities for me. And a lot of it is about the musical like that we put on, but I know Molly too, I have learned so much about being a leader, about working with kids, about how to manage stressful situations. Yeah, it's like, and being, like, I know you guys all like remember what it was like to be like a kid, like, and just have that like, oh, I'm so excited to do this, and like, be like a part of something that makes me really happy.
Cool. Thank you very much. I'm going to give you guys, you two, a heads up in particular. I was like, they'll show up because I have questions for them. As we're talking about like issues that we can deal with and how we can manage them in the village with just the size of our room, what I want you guys to think about, and I want to get your thoughts other than this. But I mean, I know you from when I was there when we got Shen School musical stuff, right? Spend a couple seconds after this thinking about what you have there in the way of all facilities, right? Versus what you have in the auditorium. How do you those things? Like, I don't know, like, think about those things for just a
Do you
little bit.
mean apples, Shen versus auditorium?
Yeah. And it's not, I mean, it's apples and oranges, I get it. But like, you know, what are the things that maybe they do well that maybe you pick up? And I'm asking you guys, because I know if everybody doesn't know, like, Fairfield High School, they've been both in the high school musicals, they both in Carnegie. So I'm cheating because I'm asking them to declare a contract for me. And Molly, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, definitely. Carpeting completely transformed my life. So I went there when I was younger, and I wouldn't have been able to if it wasn't in the auditorium, because both my parents have full-time jobs. So it was like, like a lot of people said, I could easily walk there. But what I really loved is I got to know so many kids from Round Lake and like in the village. Like Sam and I are now besties, and that's because we did carpe all these years and knew each other through this theater community. I would not have started the Chamber Musical Club where I know so many of the kids in this room from that club. And that brought me closer to like the families. Like working with Mrs. Still, so she like helped took the picture.
During Chango?
Yeah, during Chango, like with Zergia. I don't know, I just feel so connected with the Rigney family, and Mrs. Combs, she helped me out with the Chamber Musical Company as well, because it's on Harrison, isn't it? So it just really brought me into the community, because I knew all of them from Carpe Diem. I had like roots and I had connections that I wouldn't have had otherwise if it wasn't in it.
Should we put summer in?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Eric?
I'm so sorry.
Yes, sorry, I forgot to
Okay. So I just wanted to say, at the beginning of this, when we were talking about what people, want to see in the village, and also with the frustrations, there was a mention of, teenagers going around smoking weed and causing trouble. If you've been to these events, if you've been to a Carpe Diem performance, you've seen kids from our village and the way that they interact and the way they support each other and cry with each other and hug each other, it's truly striking. Those relationships are what creates accountability among our kids here in the village for themselves. They're looking out for each other after they participate in something like this together. Giving them this opportunity, it truly is an investment in our kids. This changes the experience for them in the village. I mean, I know it seems like it's a single, like, you know, it's an event in the middle of summer, but that extends. I see it. I've seen it in the kids that participate in it. I just want to share
Great
that.
role models. Great role models. I'm so sorry.
Hang on, okay, I got it back for a second. Jim, you better have your hand up.
Yeah, just on that, because I was one that mentioned about frustration. That was frustration with Ground Lake, not with the theater or anything like that. Just people out here smoking bombs and stuff on the set. That's the frustration. But the parking situation, a couple years ago, you guys used to reserve spots for people living in the city, like all of us. Then you stopped doing that. That would help out because, I mean, they say the sun, half the time you can't find a parking.
So here's what I've been told, as a board member. If you have a full-in parking spot, it's considered public parking and we can't reserve one.
You did it when you were doing it though. Before.
Well, yeah, okay, so we did it before and maybe we got in trouble. I have no idea what exactly the stance on it is, but we've been told by local council that we're not allowed to do that. Yes, doesn't that seem relatively straightforward enough?
I believe certain municipalities have gotten acts in the legislature to allow for resident parking accounts in other parts of the state. So I don't know, that's something that somebody in our legislature is thinking about.
And the parking volunteers used to try to prevent people from parking in those resident spots, but with no signs, it caused arguments with people who wanted to go there. You know, but then it got to be where it was difficult, so.
Okay. Very quickly, I'm going to come to you and then you raise your sister. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to give you a chance to say whatever you want. You want to gather your thoughts and come back to you in a minute?
Yeah, I feel like I serve best as like with the numbers and facts of things because I don't, you know, I can consider myself a leader and someone who's coming into this community with my tail between my legs, admittedly, and I'm wanting to, you know, hear everybody else's thoughts because I think it is clear what we do well and what, you know, what we provide, and I think I can be a resource as far as clarity surrounding, you know, intention and, you know, facts and figures of what are, you know, how this came to be. So I will speak on that whenever that's desired.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll come back to you.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm going to get these guys because I've been working that 3 times now.
Thank you. I live right not in the Circle Auditorium, but the next row. So I hear it, I see it, everything. I do want to say, I don't think we're in here that the people that are not saying against Carpe Diem or not, we love what it does for the kids. Part of these kids are my family. So it's very hard to have different opinions when your families, which everyone knows, my husband's been here for over 45 years. It's hard when you have family members that are doing something that they love. I support it. I just think there needs to be more structure. Sorry. I think we're talking a lot about things that are known. The kids are happy, it's enriching their lives, their art, their singing. I fully support that, but I don't think we're getting to the meat of what we need to do is how can we come together as a village and support one another by the parking, the speeding. I think that's where the workshop is. We need to get down to the things that we can fix and decide if, can it still happen in the village? And the other thing is communication. A lot of things with Carpe Diem we find out after the fact, after it was decided. And I think as a village we should have a voice on the extending of the months and how long it goes on. And that needs to be out on the table so that we know how to come to a resolution. I fully support everybody in this room. I'm not going to walk out of here and disrespect anyone, but we all have different opinions. We need to figure out how to work better together.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to grab these people. I'm going to take a pause after this, and I'm going to come. Yes, it does, but
It's not,
Just a second, I'm gonna get you trained, I swear. You don't have to raise your hand, I got you. But what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna grab your drink, and then I'm gonna stop for a second, I'm gonna get a drink of water. Offer it to you, and then, think about this for a minute, and then I'm gonna race this forward, and I think we need to talk about, to your point, some of those issues, and how we can start addressing them. Because I think, yes, and I wanted this to happen. Yeah, that carpet needs a great program. How does it fit in the village or not fit in the village? And that's why I was pressing at times, like, what's the linkage to community building and being able to walk to, how important it is for the kids to build relationships, those kind of things. But we got to talk about the impacts of an event that is as large as it is. Because it is pretty large. So, trend. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Okay, so you just said like it's not legal, of course, to make those spots reserved for residents, and I wouldn't want them to be reserved. But one, quickly want to throw in, more people will be able to park there if we got the lines back. So people stop parking diagonally. That'd be really cool. Also, is it possible to like temporarily mark those spaces as either handicapped so the people who need them can use them when those events are going on, and the people can park it there, or possibly mark them as like 10-minute parking for like drop-off purposes? Is that legal?
Yeah.
Because that might help. Okay, well I feel like that would be a really good way to, I have to assume leaks, and I know this is on your next category, but I feel like that would be a really good way to address that and still make parking available to residents well and make it accessible as well.
Yeah.
Just temporarily mark out more handicap spots and be like, please only use this.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
So, if we take an agnostic view and just go with, we're not talking about company, we're just talking about difference, all of them will have the same frustrations of communication, parking, blankets, and speeding over. But if you take all of them in totality, none of them give this village all these benefits, from some employment for kids, all the rich relationship building. Company wraps it all up in one package. So I guess my question is, one, it feels like we're beating around the bush, just talking about company. Do we want it, do we not want it? And just, let's just get straight to that matter. And two, if we want it, then let's fix what we want to fix. Otherwise, it's just that we're just talking.
You are correct, and that's Kristen's point, exactly. That's why I want to take a pause, so I can redirect the step ahead. Take a deep breath and do that. I will make one side comment about, or have a reaction, I want to say, which is the difference between and other events is there is no other event that is 6 straight weeks, every day, rolling through. It's 6 weeks, it starts at the beginning of July and it went until like
It's 5.
It's 5, yeah, it's not 4, and it's probably 40 kids and their associated
The
cars.
presence of children and all of those cars and doors, those previous weeks, which is very, like, it doesn't take the same.
Okay, fair enough. 4 weeks, 3 weeks, you have a fair number of people coming through the village at that time, and it's continuing to grow. The growth of that impacts people in the village in a way they don't necessarily like. I'm gonna, like, I see some hands, and I get, so let's hold this for a second, take a deep breath, get up and walk around for a second. And to your point, I think you're correct. I wanted to give people the opportunity to talk about what they want, love about carpet diem, because I think that's important. But I think we do need to talk about what does the village want for carpet diem in the village? Yes or no? Or it's not even, that's too black or white, frankly. It's what can we do to make sure that you're happy and we're happy, is how I would put that.
When we return to contextualize some of what conversations we've had with the auditorium when
I will give you, you can start off. All right, let's take 5 minutes, I'll set the time.
Hey, Dan. I'm coming over to say hi to you. So, no, 6 o'clock is starting. That's all right. That's okay. It's good and bad about the auditorium. No, good and bad about the village.
Oh, the thank you?
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you everyone for your, feedback and for being here. I think it's clear that we all care about the auditorium a great deal. I am a solutions-oriented person, and so I don't want to get too far from that, but I do just want to contextualize a brief history of kind of where this predicament came from, seemingly. For those who don't know, I was on the original staff hired by Joe Schaefer back in 2011 when we founded Carpe Diem. I was the founding music director, and I was here for 4 summers as a college kid before we knew what it was going to turn into. By the time I left in 2014, we had risen from 20 campers to about 70 campers. With the addition of the Younger Kid program, we ran for 4 weeks. And by our 2nd or 3rd summer, we said, like, this is a gift, we want to leave here, how can we have a rotating staff that's local, that's young, that gets their first, sea legs under them here at the auditorium. And so we, came up with the counselor program that was spoken to that, Molly and Sam participated in, as well as some other locals. And that's where we left it. Joe contacted us in 2020. By the summer of 2019, there was, I believe, 83 campers at that time. He actually ran enrollment before he knew what would happen in 2020, and it was up to 92 campers. Needless to say, we did not operate in 2020. That was the year he knew his time was done at the head of the organization, and he likes to use the phrase Willy Wonka it off to me and Vandy. My partner could unfortunately not be here today. And so we returned in 2021. When we came back, there were 66 campers between the 2 programs, and that summer we worked with Sharon Walsh, the director of auditorium. She just had to step out, and wanted to implement something that was free of charge to attend for all ages, adults, community members of all kinds, and added this series called Roots that happens over the course of 3 or 4 evenings. We bring in visiting professionals. It's something that we kind of co-curated with Sharon. She helped us implement that. It's kind of a community-centric offering. A lot of our camp kids do attend that because it is open, but we've been successful in reaching other adult members of the community, all this and that, and we maintain open lines of communication. In the 3 summers we worked with Sharon, she put our dates in the pamphlet and made sure that information was disseminated through whatever channels existed at the time. We returned in 2021 and had 66 campers, and so, enrollment kind of took a hit, and we weren't sure, it had always operated as a non-for-profit. Vandy and I did not, this was the first year that we ever took a nominal stipend to, instead, up until now it's all been volunteer, essentially, that we've just been running it. And so it's always been a break-even operation. Mostly because we have a pay-what-you-will policy across all of our programs. So there's a no questions asked financial assistance available to everybody. That to say, when we came back, we did want to reach those pre-pandemic numbers. We had 66. We were looking to land in between 80 and 100. 2022, we then went from 66 to 80 campers. So about where we hoped to land. And then 2023 was about right. We got to about 90. We thought we then in 2024 would reach 100, which was where we hoped to cap it. Sincerely, and this may be embarrassing to admit, we had no idea what enthusiasm there would be for enrollment that year. We had not needed to cap the program before, and within 2 days of enrollment being open, which we had never had to monitor it like down to the hour before, we reached 132 campers and immediately turned off enrollment and said like, okay, we're done. And that's since where we've frozen enrollment. That is true of this year as well. We use that number because, it happens to be where it landed before we were able to turn off enrollment. Like we had that many people enroll. It was just a swarm of when this registration went live. That many people enrolled in the first 2 days. And then we have this staff of 15 high schoolers plus Mandy and myself, and we want to keep that camper to supervisor ratio from 4 kids to 1 staff person on those camp days when we have each program there. And so between, we have the first half of the week, we have 66 in the older kids, and then the second half of the week, we have 66 in the younger kids. During tech week, we have both, and we look to our volunteers to help us maintain that ratio, maintain the supervision on the kids. That is, how the true story, how the expansion happened. It was not an initiative. We sought out, we of course wanted people to be a part of it. And as far as July goes, that is done. We are maintaining that cap. It did not shift this year. That is our policy. And so it's not something that we're hoping grows exponentially and that, we want to become any more an undertaking. With the additional 5th week that was added in summer of 2023, that was also something we discussed openly with Sharon when it came up. Anytime we wanted to add programming, we brought it to the auditorium. This was what we, understand to be our protocol, was we're interested in renting the auditorium, here's our dates for the following summer. Those dates are available August the year before we submit it, and we don't try to skirt anything through the back door. I think anyone who has spoken with me for any length of time knows me to be methodical and also responsive to, I'm never looking to cut corners or hide information. I'm a very transparent person, and so I've been responsive to the feedback we've received when I am able to field that personally. A lot of it has, escaped my line of communication, and then when it comes to me, it sometimes feels too little too late. But so we added a 5th week of programming in 2023 with Sharon, in collaboration with her, and that is the showcase week. It's a small program of, it started as 10 kids, and now that has capped at 25 this past summer. And that's what we do the first week, and then the camp program starts starts the following and runs for 4 weeks. So those are our 5 summer weeks. I think one of the exciting incidents behind this meeting was the announcement of us being, looking to mount a production in May. This is something that came up in February. Next year marks 15 years that we've been in Round Lake. It's our 15th anniversary. And so we wanted to mark that with the potential of having a spring production. We've chosen Oliver. This was something that I immediately brought to the auditorium team and said, here's our idea, just as I had with the other Carpathian programs, what needs to happen for us to make this possible. And so, at the time, we were working on renovating the dressing rooms, renovating the dinner service, refurbishing, we invested in some structures that could be implemented there. And so while we were doing that with David, Dan, our senior designer, this conversation came up, and we said, our benefit concert this year in July, we'd love to be able to state our intentions for 2026, which is having this spring production, which will be rehearsed off-site and then present in the auditorium for evenings in May, partially because we have an audition week in May that has always run pretty smoothly. That one we don't tend to get a lot of feedback about. We're in and out in the evening hours. It's the full camp numbers, so it's the full enrollment that is coming in and out to do those auditions that week, and then we do our read-throughs, and then we do a brief little staff training day before we leave and eventually come back at the end of June. Because that has worked well for us, the initial question was, we seem to be the thing opening the auditorium when we arrive for auditions in May. And so the first question with the auditorium team was, how early could the auditorium open? No one's using it until we are there the 3rd week of May. Could we move a production in for the first 2 weeks that would rehearse in the evenings, same hours if not less than the auditions, and then have a performance weekend before we do our auditions? That was the ask, which was then met with positive affirmation. And so over those months, the auditorium team has heard me many times ask, what do I need to do to make this possible? What do I need to do? Who needs to know to make this possible? And we followed the protocol that was explained to me. Right up until July, I said, okay, the benefit concert's in 2 weeks. Are we okay to announce, our intention to have a professional production of Oliver? If you're interested in those numbers, it'll be 20 kids, 20 teens, 20 adults, including professional actors, because we want to be an educational opportunity. They'll offer a master class or 2 while rehearsing alongside them, and a hired professional pit orchestra to work within the structure that we built as our stage expansion this summer. So that is how that came to be. I genuinely apologize to anyone who was really caught off guard by that announcement. The communication streams that are available to me had been checked. And so I am extremely open to sharing, information. Again, I'm never trying to hide anything. This was something that had about 5 months of lead time. I had a 5-month runway from the time I knew those 2026 dates. This month we will reserve next July. I have those dates. There's nothing hidden there. There's no surprises. And I also just want to reiterate that this template was intended to be the maximum of our ask. We value all the additional programming. We want to be good neighbors. There used to be additional programs in the month of July, and we would vacate and clear things as much as needed to be. We are open to that if that needs to happen again. There haven't been July bookings, and David, has chosen to reserve that month for us because it does engage so many people, and because all these X, Y, and Z reasons that it is successful. Just a note of clarity on our operation budget. It is between 90 and 120K all in. The top line item on that. Revenue.
Or revenue, not
Revenue, not
profit.
income.
Sorry.
Yeah, not profit. We're still breaking even.
Yeah.
Total revenue is between 90 and 120. Our biggest line item expense is our payroll for our counselors. So, and then our visiting workers as well. So that is sort of the breakdown of, I think, how we all ended up here. I turn it back to you to see, I also, just spoke to Bob about pick up and drop off. That was a real area of need, and he was just commenting commenting how, since we came in 2021, that this summer he was like amazed at how, that happened. And it was because Bob was a great resource for us, coming to me saying what, pick up and drop off needed to look like. We got the walkie-talkies, we trained the staff, you need to be out here, you need to talk to cars, we need to keep them moving, we can't gridlock the whole village, all of this.
Can I ask for clarity though?
Yeah.
When you say your auditorium team, who is that?
That's David and Molly, the auditorium directors, and then I include Dan on those things, Dan Peshka, who, runs tech most often. And, when it comes time for the contract each year, which is settled in the fall prior, we do include Gary on those conversations, usually when we close out as well.
Can I ask a question? That's like from your communication between you, David, and Molly. Does any of that communication go to the board for reinforcement? I just remember in years past with Sharon had the liaison, which was Hyde Parker. We don't seem to have that anymore. So I think some communication is getting missed from that.
Yeah, I think there's an area of need for sure.
That needs to happen again.
I will jump in. My personal experience on the board, had the slightest idea that you guys wanted to do more until you announced it. So I think what I'm writing to myself over here is we internally need to work pretty closely with our team to make sure that communication is coming through.
And yet I told you about a show on Friday that you didn't know about either. So like I'm saying, how much do you need to know about the representation of what it is every single show? Every single time.
Right?
No,
I don't
no
know.
matter.
I don't know. We as a whole, just a second. I'm going to speak for the board. I'm going to get Jason.
Board's
and
gonna
then you.
speak
We
too.
as a board, I got
Been sitting very quietly for a long time.
Yeah, we as a board have to figure that out because we need to
Yes,
clarify
for sure.
that. And we can't expect you guys to read our minds. Jason and then.
So, in the realm of communication, I think the big thing is Carpe Diem is such a large part of the auditorium, of the village, of the heart, that I think beyond just communication with the auditorium director, I think Carpe Diem should have a direct line of communication with the village board and in regards to aspects of that, so that way some of the decisions and things that are happening, like bringing a temporary trailer, like building a stage, like all that stuff, can be communicated very clearly with the village board, so that way we can all work together to have this very nice community event that serves the children.
So, hold on just a second. I want to add in my little bit of editorial for that, which is we as the board got to figure that out. I don't think we're going to do it tonight. But also, the board doesn't, it is a political group that needs once a month. We don't make decisions fast enough for what we need. So we have to figure out how we lay out, this is my take, we have to figure out how we're going to put guardrails of what we think the village wants, which is our responsibility, and make sure that the director and the assistant know what those are and we say within advance.
So this whole thing was a failure of communication. This is basically why we're all here tonight, is because there was a failure of communication. I think we can all acknowledge that. We can point fingers at who is responsible, who is not responsible. I think it's just a failure. We are a political group, the board. We don't decide what the programming is going to be. We have empowered the auditorium director through our contract to sort of develop programming. What we also do is we empower, say, our VBW superintendent to decide when things need to get fixed. But we also have a report at each board meeting to let us know what's going on. And I think that's the opportunity there is we do have the auditorium director's report, but for some reason, Carpe Diem expanding to May for whatever reason didn't make it into the reporting. That I think we just need to do a better job of. I don't think the whole village needs to come and say, yeah, we're going to do more open mics, we're going to do less open mics. We need to do more
more this, more that. I think we need the broad strokes, the input of everybody, right? But there's, I think, I forget who said, Danielle might have said, or maybe it was, anyway, Chrissy, there's a million different opinions in this village. You're gonna piss off somebody one point or another down the road, right? So in my opinion, we just need to empower folks to make some of these decisions, but we also have open lines of communications as well. And something was missed here, and now everybody's upset. Carpe Diem does a fantastic job with the kids, and I think the very first thing that was said was, what do we like about the village? Multi-generational, right? This auditorium is gonna require millions of dollars of work, and our time on the board is gonna be long over when it's still gonna be done, and we're gonna wanna have kids that care about the auditorium 20 years from now, so we put money into it, and the very kids that grew up there are gonna be the kids that are hopefully living in this village, deciding on the money that's invested on that building down the road. So, you know, I sat and I've been quiet for a little while, I just wanna get my thoughts out there on this, but we just gotta, I don't know how it all came, it's literally probably one missed email, or one missed CC that's caused a lot of different problems
I'm
here.
not gonna argue with you on that one. I'm sorry to tell you this. The stage is a huge issue. Like, the stage, let me tell you my perspective on that one, and you guys can jump in. The board was told you were putting a stage. We want to ask, we were told. And as these guys know, I've built plenty of stages. You don't just slap that up and then put 130 kids on it, because I know you all dance and jump around and stuff, so you actually have to make sure it's pretty rigorous. So I jumped on that, and that's why I think sort of last minute, probably from your perspective, you know, like you need plans and you had to have it inspected and that kind of stuff, because I was concerned about that.
That's different than programming though, Eric. Like, it's different than developing programming. I agree with you, like, but again, we're not stage.
But that affects their program.
But we're also not stage engineers. Like we're part-time board members. We're coming, like we're not here to.
We're here to manage the risk for the.
Right. We're not authoritarians though, giving our thumbs up and thumbs down on every slight decision that's made.
Well, right, I agree.
Yeah.
Was the stage temporary? Isn't that like a?
It's still out. It was, the mayor texted me to ask us to leave it until October 18th for a wedding, and so we're doing that. And so I've now moved, it was going to come out this past weekend, and we were asked to hold off on that until October 19th, which I now have moved the team.
I just want to clarify that it's temporary part of Carpe Diem, that's almost more like a proper part of the production.
It was asked of us to leave, it was built to be temporary, it was part of our strike plans to come out on August 2nd when we were done. There was expressed interest for the recitals later in the month to keep it in place. We said we can't then remove it immediately then, so it would need to be moved September 9th. So this also affected the book sale, at which time we then had Nancy come over and discuss with us, will this work for the book sale? And everything up until September 7th was then signed off on. So we said, okay, we'll move it September 7th, at which time then I received communication, it needs to stay in place until October 18th. Can you get it between that and the costume contest, which by some miracle our folks can do on October 19th. And so that's when now we're moving it and putting it in our storage, not to be seen until we come back to use it for asbestos.
I have a question regarding that. So when you come, and if you come, like it's written in May, to do your performance, I'm sure you're going to have your stage extension.
Right.
Is it going to come down?
Yes.
After that performance?
Yes. And
So
then
we can enjoy that open space, whether we want to have dinner or dance or whatever.
certainly,
Okay.
yeah.
So I'm gonna,
All right, that's.
so here's what I'm seeing, like, Carpe Diem, you are doing the right thing, right? There is a fairly significant failure of communication within the village.
Agree.
Like, I haven't heard the mayor told you to keep it up until October, because I've been hearing from other people that they want to take it down immediately. So I'm on a freaking board and I didn't know that somebody on the board had decided that. So pardon my anger, so we need to get communications internally a little more clear. I'll take you in a second, I'm sorry, I'm late.
Yeah, this does feel like an element of control and responsibility. Who's in control of the building and who's not? It sounds as if because you were part of the board did not know about it, you're upset. Therefore, you change of
So here's how I look at it. As an elected official, I'm responsible for people in the village, and when people come up and ask me things, I feel like I ought to know them, ought to know the answer. And when I don't know the answer, I become confused. So it is, wait, it is not a question of control so much as, the way I think of it is a matrix of some people have responsibility, some people have authority. I have responsibility as a board member for pretty much everything that goes on in the village. I delegate my authority, and we delegate our authority to people like the director or the director of VBW to run their business.
Do you
But-
have that same requirement for every event that happens all year? Because it needs to be fair, it can't just be,
Yes.
this is this and this is that.
So if another organization came in, and I'll repeat in just a second, I see you twitching. If another organization came in and said, we want to build a stage, yeah, I want to know. And I also want to know that the village, whoever that person is, it could be the director, or it could be DPW, or it could be the village inspector, verifies that something that is put in the village that people will be standing on is safe. Because I, as a village board member, am responsible for managing the rest of the village. I'll put you in
The board needs to act.
I'm on
board needs.
Yes. Oh, no, yes, the board as a whole needs to know.
So let's be distinctive, if the board knows, because if the board might know, but you might not know.
Oh, so you're asking to come out of the loop? Did you guys know we were extending?
I don't remember, I remember learning of the stage, but I don't remember the exact sequence of the.
Well,
events
yes,
that
you know
we
they were
were
extending in May, was
Yeah.
the question.
I don't remember jumping, I don't remember jumping.
I heard about that in the meeting.
Yeah.
So we heard about it, and did you guys know that we told them to leave the stage up until October?
No.
No, and
So no, it's not just me.
Right, but let's not blame the child when
I'm not
there
blaming-
is another line of communication you may have missed.
I'm not blaming the child. I'm very specifically saying,
It's not what's, I'm just,
and that's what I'm saying, is I'm not blaming Perfect Deal. I'm saying that the board needs to tighten our communication with our team.
well, I think there's two different things. What level do we need to be informed at, and what level do we need to control? And I think sometimes there's a conflation of, I need to be informed and have control. And there's sometimes, if a water meter is broken, I just need to be informed about it in the superintendent's report. If a stage is being built, and somebody says, the stage is being built because of X, Y, Z, I don't need to go and stand on it to see if it's safe. I just want to make sure that I know that it's there. If there's going to be a program in May, this is just my opinion as a board member. I don't need to know about every minutia of detail that goes on, but it would be nice to have broad information. Clearly, there was a lack of information with some of this stuff, and that's what's caused a lot of these issues. I think sometimes we're conflating though, what does the board want to control versus what does the board want to be informed on? I think we're mixing those two things up here.
We're not conflating anything.
Yeah.
I'm not conflating anything. I'm saying we have to get in a room and talk about it.
Yeah.
There's no conflation there. And then we have to talk about it and determine exactly what you said. You can wait forever. And then I'm coming for you, and then I'm coming for you.
So I do have a multi-stage, just very briefly. I love Carpe Diem for the kids. I think it's an amazing production that goes on every year. I'm not looking to take any of that away. We've talked about all of the minuscule items and why I think that growth for our tiny village is difficult. Secondary, I'm a member of a whole bunch of different things that happen here in the village, whether it's markets, Halloween, things like that. There are different platforms that we all have to follow. We do have to make sure that the calendar is open, that we can get into the stage and do the things that we want. So there is that process that we all follow through.
Which I think was followed.
No.
But how was this program not following that process? I think we just agreed there was a lack of communication, that they went to people they thought they were supposed to, but then there needs to be so when you guys do your events, do you go to the auditorium people, or do you go to the village? I think it's an internal,
It is.
it's
It is.
confusing,
It is.
it's confusing for me,
It is.
this year,
hold on for just a second.
So I, being married to him, that was something to say.
Yeah.
I think it's confusing being the director, not having steps of how to do things. For example, communication, who am I supposed to talk to? Sure, he doesn't directly say that to me, but it's between him and Molly and Dan. It's the three of them trying to do this whole thing kind of by themselves. Get the events, figure that out, parking, concessions, all this, and yet you're putting all this on them, which I get, communication, totally get that. I know, but it's a whole lot, and so it'd be nice if we could figure out processes, yes, communication processes. We need a team for parking, like it can't just, we need more teams, we need more people we all love the auditorium, we're all saying that. We want more events.
But is that in the contract communication though? I mean,
Well,
is it with each,
I don't
it's
know.
a paid position, so there should be something that states, is there?
There's not, there,
Report.
as far as,
One thing that we have to address for next year is if they work very well with Sharon because she was in the office 4 days a week. We do everything with go through Pat basically, bouncing ideas off us, and so that we could share what was going on with the board. But we may have to look at spend some time in the office so we can do the same thing.
Well, right, so then,
That's
that's,
better.
and that comes to also to the one, which is, it's a hell of a lot of work to manage the auditorium. And we run 90% of it, yes, I need to vote in a second. We run 90% of it on volunteer.
Yes.
And I don't even, you guys spend way more time than you get paid. So we need to think about what it truly takes to support the auditorium and how we get routine. Pay for that as a small village. And then,
I just wanted to say, being the director of the auditorium, being in village meetings past 5, 6, 10 years, getting people to volunteer for parking has always been horrid for any event. It's not just your problem this year, it's just been one of those things, getting people to do that. It seems like nobody wants to do that, and I feel for you there, but it's been an ongoing problem.
What is the volunteer department? You mean, like person volunteer parts?
Yeah, you wear the vest, you have
I'll
some.
volunteer.
I will take your number.
It's not
I'm
a
grab
person.
her, and then grab her, and, no, grab her, and then grab him, and then grab him.
I do think you're absolutely right, the parking, I do think that would come up with golf carts, and a village golf cart, and there might be more people that are willing to be like, hey, I'll drive the village golf cart for an hour before an event. But I was just wondering, like, when I am genuinely, like, seriously asking this question, when we're talking about, like, when we all, like, is there somebody else that people go to other than Molly and Dave when they want to do something at the auditorium? Like, I'm genuinely asking that question, like, to everybody here, like, who do you go to?
When they want to what?
When they want to do something at the auditorium, like who
right, Danielle does a lot of things at the auditorium.
Right, I know, but like if I want to do something at the auditorium, say I want to have a wedding show, like who do I go to? If I want to have a movie night, who do I go to? If I want to do something, if I want to have all the kids there, do crafts one day, like who do I go to for an event? I am genuinely asking that question, I'm not trying to sue
Well,
I'm confused.
I just know from the past being at meetings, I remember Sharon going up to the board and saying, I have a wedding, wants to be scheduled for blah, 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 blah. And then it would be on the books or something
Okay,
like
so
that.
it is to the director.
The director, and the director needs to take.
I will come to every village meeting. Can we just stop now? Like, I will come to every village meeting. I know, but like, I can do that.
Okay, let's hold on, okay, we can nail this.
I'll just piggyback here. Covered here needs to take more responsibility for, not rely on village volunteers. I mean, you must have your own.
They're definitely not village volunteers. It's all parents. It's all.
For our parking, we rely on our own volunteers.
I mean, we get to it done, who cleaned the auditorium?
Absolutely.
Our
Parents. Say
We had
parents.
to have people come in and clean the
Not
auditorium, so we have a book stand. That was the only thing that happened.
That's not true. I'm going to be very positive here, very positive. I just want to say, because I have 2 nieces in the program. My sister-in-law Laura's right there. I love her. There's my niece, I love her. But I'm just gonna let you know something. Out of the month of July, I'm just gonna take July, because that's when you're there, we had one event. We had 4 open mics in our season. The first one, June, was fabulous, because we have actually somebody that dances when she comes, and she does a hula hoop thing in front of the band. So since the July one, when I went there, all the garbages were full on the night of the open mic. And it's not the first time, this is in years past. It would just be nice that if we could all respect the building and leave it in good shape for the next person that's going to be taking over that event that night. So the garbages were full, and we're in the process of constructing your stage. There were plywood against all the sideboards. And it was just, it wasn't a good look. And it was very uncomfortable for us to have the open mic. For me, it was. I'm not speaking for anybody else. For me, I felt that it was an intrusion on one of our 4 nights that we had over the summer. So when you say you cleaned it up.
I thought you meant after, please excuse me.
No, it's
you're
just, you know, and then this, one more thing, is I used to clean, record, I cleaned the auditorium for 5 years, and I cleaned after Joe Shaver. And I'll tell you, when Dixie was there, and then it went over to Tom Bergen, there was a big change, and things were really getting picked up. But I don't know who has to hire somebody, but there needs to be a cleaner every day. Because if the garbage isn't going to be taken out, the animals come in. So somebody to be on top of Park Dam, whether it's employed by the village or it's employed by you, somebody needs to be in there. That's it. And it's not a bad thing. I'm not.
I agree.
I'm not, it's not bad, but it's just.
There's a lot of hands up, but then after a while, we said before Joe. Let me grab Joe first, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, so that's okay. Just on the garbage front, I agree, it has also been a source of communication. What started when, I'll speak to 2021 and onward, I mean, when I was a counselor way back in the day, we took care of trash, and that was what we did. We came back, and Sharon wanted, the first summer, us doing it, she said, let's not do that anymore. We'll hire a cleaner, hired Phyllis. We worked closely with Phyllis on coordinating for external events. That fee was tacked onto our contract. And so since then, we've had discussions about bringing the garbage ownership back to Carpe Diem so that we do take that responsibility on. But it has been expressed that it stay in our contract as something that Round Lake oversees. And so, I agree that we need to all keep a closer eye on it, but as far as our contractual agreement, it was taken back by the village, and so we tied to an extent and then leave the actual disposal, with Molly, they were super helpful about, but that's kind of the current arrangement that we have. I do think it can be optimized, and I'm sorry for the messaging that it gave you.
Let's write down that hire cleaner.
Well, the comment I was going to make was back when we were saying people don't know things that are happening. And there is a presumption that the events that we have every single year are just going to happen, but nobody ever says, we know when Illumination's going to be, we know when the book sale's going to be, but it does sometimes, like there was one year that the whole book sale thing and getting in there, wasn't going to work out, and Sharon, anyway, bottom line, what I'm saying is, I think there should be something that maybe either goes out to the village residents or whatever, and if you have any event that you have any chairmanship of or ownership of that is going to happen, I think we have to throw them all in at the same time so that the people who are running the auditorium know everything and nobody's blindsided by anything like that, and that, it gets on an actual physical calendar as well. And then I think that we might not run into some of these issues.
Right, for the calendar, there's a public-facing calendar when there's an event.
But it's not.
Yeah, but then there is an actual working calendar that is, like for the book sale, you need a week to get all that stuff in there, right? So like this particular year, you guys want to grab the weekend before so we were trying to get books in, so the sequencing
Well,
was.
we were closely in touch.
Oh, no, this year worked really well.
Yeah.
I think it was
Oh, I mean,
one of the
it's-
other years that Sharon had to like, oh, no, you can't get in there till Tuesday at the end of the session.
It was good.
We worked together very well.
And it was okay.
It was,
It turned out okay.
It was.
So while we're saying that there's a problem, it's not always the problem that we think it is. It turned out okay.
But I think the point of saying, if I say, okay, the sale's happening on such, and we know it's from Tiger and Markets,
And then we
and we need it from here to here, early on in in the year, then we kind of work around that calendar with knowledge.
You guys have something over here?
I just wanted to say one more thing about a lot of these community events that we do hold in the auditorium are solely based on volunteer time. So it might take a little bit longer to set up Halloween or book sale than what somebody might think, because it's solely based on volunteers just running from work and jumping in their truck and going up the hill to bring books down and organizing all of those books. Things take a little bit longer when you're strictly working with volunteer time.
Can I just ask, being new here, the first time I saw was when Gary posted kind of the last ditch effort for volunteers for the arts and crafts in the park. And what was helpful to me is living here not even a full year yet, was to see the breakdown of what you're requesting for volunteers. That was like the coolest thing ever, but it came too late, unfortunately, with other commitments. But maybe that can go out as soon as the year, as you guys are building it, and break it down to say, not just, hey, I want to volunteer, but say what those, break it down positions, because if I had known earlier, just a little, like even a week earlier than Gary's post.
But again, it's one
one
of
of
those
the size thing.
Again, it's one of those things, it's a volunteer, Molly, taking their time to build that
Right.
sheet. So,
And I would point out, the markets aren't technically a village thing, they're a wordless thing. There's whole overlap of organizations.
Anyway, well, this is amazing to understand it, so.
I'm glad
Oh, if you understand it, you can explain it to us all.
I'm dyslexic, maybe that's why I worked.
Oh, me too.
So piggybacking on what Amanda said, like the haunted house takes months. It's already in production. It almost didn't happen because I don't have my spouse to help this year. So I have others that have kind of kicked up, but it takes months. So there's stuff in the back that I've communicated with David and Gary about that needs to be moved. And I think we're working around it this year to not have to disrupt some of the stuff that's there, but I think people think when they show up at the haunted house that it's just like, oh, how cute, they did this in a weekend. It is literally people crafting, painting, reconstructing, building, and it is a lot of work, so.
And that is not only true of the Halloween stuff. but
Right.
Also.
but the calendar and yes, all of our community-centric events
Right.
take a lot of time.
Right, and I mean, you guys, I'm gonna say have like an open mic night set down to a science, but it's still these hours before open mic night.
Yeah.
When you start at 4 o'clock, making sure everything is cleaned up and ready to go, and the pizza's there and all that kind of stuff, there's sound checks, all that stuff. Everything has lead time.
When you're managing the schedule for those things, you're putting all those events in for the amount of time that the people that are working so hard on them say they need, right?
Yeah, I think what I learned from Sharon about programming is like, the space is ultimately a community space. So we build large, like, we really only run events that we pull in someone from outside like a dozen times, but otherwise there's huge margins for it to be a community space, so.
But if somebody contacted you tomorrow and said,
Yeah.
I want to do something on the 28th, if you would just tell them, that's too close to Halloween, you're not fine.
Yeah, right. Right, and also, yeah, and also, like.
Did you hear her say it takes months to do Halloween?
It takes to mark off the opportunity.
Well,
Right.
yeah.
I think that's very important.
Well, that's what,
And it's
that's
backstage.
what those has to decide what's important.
That's true.
So, and going back to the communications, which I think is the main crux of this again, is like, I think it would be really helpful to have him come to the meetings and say, here's the thing, we're having a wedding on the 18th, having the Halloween party on the 31st. And then that way, anybody who comes and says, no, I need that space, but what if the people aren't here, or like you don't hear it, that it's there, like that you're like, oh, that's okay, backstage is where we're doing the Halloween stuff. You'll have 4 hours to have a wedding, and then I definitely want you out to be back in there. Right? I think that having somebody at the meetings is really important. I am willing to do it. I'm coming to meetings and I'll tell you what's going on. But I think that if somebody hears that and says, but we need more time to do, everybody has to come to the meetings, like, oh.
Or is there like a Google calendar?
Say this is all I'm not wanting to go for it, and then something back that says, you can have this, not that.
It's accepted by.
But I think it has to come to the board, and we have to decide.
I think that's an hamstring David to be created in a space, to have a village political bureaucracy.
Board doesn't decide.
I have zero interest in thumbs up and thumbs down. And I appreciate everything you all do to build, but I don't also need to know the details of like the timelines either. Like that's why we have these committees and people to work together. is to figure all that stuff
Building a
out.
maze backstage could be into,
Like, I didn't know anything
people
about
are gonna
this.
walk through that maze.
Yeah.
I'll
You
give
didn't
them
know
everything
about
that's being built.
Have you seen the HUD map?
I mean, I assumed, but I didn't know what the calendar or the timeline looks like, and what
And that's
should-
working
And as a
full
board
time.
member, should I? Like, do I really need to know that granularity of information? No, I don't.
But to take months and not interfere with other things,
And that's why we have directors to like figure that stuff out.
like October is usually, past years has been reserved for the haunted house.
Yes.
Some may feel
Last year
it's
we
not.
came to a compromise with, I think, the second weekend, does anybody remember? Second.
Yes.
No events after this.
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks ago, like, but yeah, that was an issue with compromise on.
There was a compromise in that the board said we're gonna have something the second week of October.
Yes,
and
it
the
wasn't.
choice for the Halloween people was take it or leave it. Yeah, that's a good compromise.
And let me say, wasn't gonna happen this year.
Yeah.
I didn't decide until a week ago that it could because I had people volunteer. It wasn't gonna happen.
Yeah.
If you looked at the thousands of people that were in the village last Halloween and the line we had,
Oh, it's crazy.
hundreds and hundreds of people. I do it for the community, just like Arcadium and all the art things, and it's art. It's, you know, a community event, same as the costume contest. So I can't build a structure when I have limits on, well, I have a wedding, I have a rehearsal. So like the calendar's not being updated, I'm sitting there, just block the time. The wedding is, you know, when I looked at October, it's completely clear. So that shows to me that there's nothing going on. So definitely back to the communication of there needs to be a central spot that everyone knows about that gets updated regularly.
All right. I'll get you in just a second. It's 7:45, 7:50. I was gonna try to wrap this up on these. So when I'm saying
That's just the first part.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll grab you guys. Put your hands down for just a second. I'm speeching. So, I think I'm trying to capture, I've been kind of listening, trying to capture some key things. What I want to do is, what I would suggest is, like, if people have their hands up, we're not going to get everything tonight. So I think, A, we can communicate to the board meetings, you can send emails, smoke signals, clearly our communication is great anyway, right? The other thing we can do is we can sort of talk about, we can have these sessions if we think it's helpful and useful, and we can tighten up the agenda as we run through that. But what I wanted to capture before we sort of break is key things. It's just the highest level. Like, it sounds like centralized calendar, more widely shared is incredibly important. And God knows it's 2025, we ought to be able to do that electronically, right? So we're just like a board out there. So we need to look, and that may be an investment in the village, but it should be a ridiculous investment. So we get public facing one, I think, to where I'm also hearing is we need the working one, right? Which is, you know, we're going to have the event public facing on Tuesday, but that means we have to start on Sunday, whatever it is. So the time is involved there. And that's what you guys work with, and that's good. Early scheduling, talking about B&C, like, yeah, there's like some key things that, like, you know, after 45 years, probably we're gonna have a book sale, but let's make sure we're clear on the dates and get those done in February. And really, gap fill time, that's kind of what I was talking about the work calendar, just to make sure we put some of that in, and take care of that too, like, because things don't disappear over time. Communication, like, we need to figure out our internal stuff, make sure we're working with you guys better. We gotta decide what we wanna know, how much authority we're seeking, which is a conscious decision we need to make. And that's sort of a board discussion. Within the village, I think this kind of goes with the calendar, but there may be other communication lines we need to think about other than just straight calendar. Clearly, you have your fold-out thing, but maybe you consider that. I think it's the brochure, right?
Right.
I wasn't.
I do want to speak to that. I have had the idea to have, basically I don't want like somebody from outside a community that doesn't work events in the space to see the calendar. So I have had the idea to have like a way to go to the auditorium website to see a Google Calendar. So I think what I'm hearing is that is a very important thing.
Yeah, it sounds like that's very important.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think where I was going here is clarify the roles of, make sure you guys are clear what you need, make sure you've got enough support, make sure we're clear on the roles, all that kind of stuff I already talked about, but you play a role in some of this stuff too occasionally, right? When and how you get involved, things are important. And just general volunteering and all that kind of stuff.
I just want to say one thing. I'm a retired architect. The building is falling apart. It needs work. To me, that's where I go with the building. We need a commitment from the village to fix it. We're talking a couple $100,000. I mean, I just asked our assemblywoman for money. And I asked her before, she said, she might, it'll be a couple of years, but keep that in mind, this all may be mute in 3 years from now, we can't use the building because structurally it's not sound.
Right.
We went through, we said to replace part of the beam that's over the floor, the whole building would come down. I looked at the tower and said, we should not have events in there on a windy night because that tower was ready to come down. So we need, as a village, we need to take a look at the auditorium and fix it and take care of it.
Right, so Jason's got his hand up, I will say that's probably, that was a topic for tonight, as you can see, we not talking here, because as I said, it's a big topic. Jason, hit.
So, my stance as board member is I don't necessarily care what events transpire. What I care more about is the communication and the reports to the board, so that way when there are things that are potential, risks. So a temporary trailer needs to be hooked up, an electrician needs to come in and do that work. Is that something that the village is going to allow or not allow? That type of things where somebody's connecting into infrastructure or making modifications to the building is village board things. The specific events and how that time works, that isn't really a board issue, that's auditorium director. But there should be reports saying, hey, this is kind of what we're looking to do, so that way we aren't caught off guard on the street when people come up and are like, hey, how come this is going on? How come that's going on? It would be nice to have a broad scope of what's happening at the auditorium and not be completely in the dark and have people approach you. Hey, we seen this on so-and-so's website. Hey, we see this going on. Why is there plywood out behind the auditorium? Just knowing all that, knowing that on the board position goes a long way to working with the community and being able to answer those questions. Because when we're standing there and we say, oh, I don't know, it's kind of not a good look.
And to answer Peter's question, I don't think there's a single person on the board that's not willing to address whatever it takes in the village. I think it's just the getting it done part of it. And, I have a full-time job, I have family, all that stuff. My job on the board is the legislation and things that come in front of the board. It's not fixing the buildings. I fully support whatever amount of money it takes to. And Jason and I were talking about, we gotta get a grant writer. We gotta get one. We have money in the budget for a grant writer. Let's get a grant writer.
And
I'm not, nobody disagrees with that, so.
I'm willing to run the committee to work with the grant writer and other.
You are.
Yeah,
So I want to hold this one.
Yeah, we don't want to get too far.
All right, I get it. I got Lauren, and then we'll see what we do.
One of the Carpe, since Carpe Diem is going to be starting in May, I mean, we should back up. Normally, auditorium events kind of start in June, at least that's kind of my mind, other than maybe what you did.
Our audition.
Your auditions, okay. Even with your auditions, what does the village and other village organizations need to do to make sure that the auditorium is operable 3 weeks, this coming year, 3 weeks earlier than we have in the past?
Well, yeah, that's.
And, and so are we, able to do that? The snow doesn't melt until, April 27th. Are we able to get in there and make sure that all the bathrooms work?
We don't usually turn the water on until the building is open.
Right, so that's one of my,
Yeah, the water.
moving events up has other, consequences. Are we able to get in there and make sure everything works and get it cleaned and get the mice out?
But that's like, how do I say this? That's like an internal village thing. That's not like that's not a volunteer thing. It's
Right.
an internal village thing. A village board.
I think that's an auditorium director issue to solve. Of how to get the building up and running early.
Okay, so, what are we on? Is this how old? We vote on anything.
Let's do it again.
Decisions. So, are we all just super frustrated?
Yes.
So I've worked in nonprofits all my life. I think the kind of only and most important thing that you wrote up here is clarify rule, and I haven't really heard anyone push for it. What often happens with really small organizations is you get sort of handshake deals or people who don't really have a job description, and it all works out until somebody does the same thing that somebody used to do, just because they work more remotely and Sharon is more in office. So what you don't want is a board becoming super toxic, deciding on every little thing, including like what color dress Molly wears to the auditorium one day. But you also don't want them deciding everything and you and the board not knowing anything. So I really hope that the outcome here is that there is a document or a job description or something that describes what Molly and David should decide on in this report and what they actually do.
Yeah, right.
We do have one that I think is worth revisiting, right? I mean, we do have an auditorium director contract and what their responsibility is, and maybe we should revisit that as a board and decide if we want to make some tweaks to it.
Okay, so we want to have another session. What are people's opinion on another session? Maybe more focus on, do we need to focus on
I just want to know, like, is anything actually anything up to be canceled by anyone's?
What was another session? Well, we haven't talked about parking or speeding or additional traffic. I think those concerns should be addressed. But if we address
Can those be at the village?
smaller
Yeah. Can those be at the village meeting?
and bring
Speeding is always going to be a problem. I could give you the name of 15 residents I'd like to see in jail.
I agree, Gary.
I agree too.
I get them on my
I don't think it's fair to put that at Carpe Diem because it is.
Yes.
And parking, from what I have observed, and I go out on my bike during every big show, and I just have not seen the problems that would warrant the complaints. And let me say this right now, Eric.
But Eric, how do you move your car? As soon as we
Let
they were done your lunch.
me
they were
react.
done.
Right.
And someone could do that to go to the library, so.
And also, let me state publicly, go get them next year for any illegal parking. Right?
I mean, my neighbor was selling their house and people parked on my lawn for a full week. They must have done 25 showings. But, I'm not here to come to the board and ask that people not sell their homes or that they control parking in front of my house if there's a real estate that.
Around my house, I've got 10 cars parked in the street doing construction on houses. Am I gonna call Bob on these? No. I mean, it's noisy,
There's
it's
a
temporary.
world of difference between something that happens occasionally.
Yes.
And something that was scheduled for 15 years for 5 weeks.
Technically,
But that's why
no.
people are out there and maybe as having them move
You're
those
enforcing
cars.
a
I,
differential.
there's nothing I can do about this.
If the car's parked illegally, you would, you know, do I not enforce it for them, but Peter, I don't like Peter. Somebody parking.
Oh, I wasn't suggesting that you wouldn't enforce it if they were parking in the lawn, but I'm suggesting that the impact to the people around you
I think all the parking lines for the auditorium, I think obviously we have parking for it, but I don't think it easily, we could block off the entire, like, I would say, there does not need to be any cars at all that comes in.
And that should be at that next meeting to talk about it.
Except for residents.
So I was gonna say, except for all corners, we don't have any cars.
And you have a resident pass or yeah.
So that's actually, I think, it's gonna solve a lot of the problems. We did run an event where we shut off both of the streets here.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the biggest problem is when you get in the interior here and they're going around circles and they're blocking people from leaving to go out. I mean, you have residents who are trying to get out. You know, I think that, I honestly think that's our only solution, is to keep people off these roads. I held an event where we blocked both sides off with cones. I mean, you don't have to go as far as I actually gave tickets to all the residents around here, if you remember that. And that was the people that came through, and you looked at the tag, they knew that they were residents. But I think even beyond that, are there, how many people actually coming in to these, are we talking about an event, or are we talking about coming in and dropping kids off in the morning, or this for quarantine?
They line up around Wesley, Fletcher, along
For,
that.
I know, I'm talking about for an event, one of the main
That's
events in.
That's daily.
Pick up and drop off.
They come up and pick up.
They're not parking.
They're not
right?
stopping.
Yeah,
Oh, they absolutely stop.
yeah.
When they're picked up, they line up along the back of the auditorium along Fletcher, which is where you see, I see that. Complete side note, I don't know who the counselor girl was who you had on parking this year.
Killing it.
She was hilarious. She's like, you get that car down here now. Like, she was moving along, but still, and I realized, I said it, 10% of the world is assholes. You could have cars lined up all the way around Fletcher, and you would have 2 cars come directly at them and just drive through the grass and go all the way around and go all the way through Bob's yard, all the way around, and that's fine. Obviously, your counselor who is, I don't know, 16 years old ain't gonna stop that, but these are the things that I see when I'm sitting there, and it's like, and it's been going on for a really long time. And not that specifically, but like every time we nail down an issue, the music pops up. Every time we nail down an issue, the music pops up. And it's frustrating after a while. Closing the street block.
Yeah. Usually the carpet diem seem to be under control. I hate to say it, but it seems to be Round Lakers coming the opposite way, doing the evil deed. And I can name names, but I won't. But you know, carpet diem I think is doing a pretty good job. They tie me up for 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at the end. I agree with that, but so I rearrange my life a little bit, you know. I don't go out just shopping at that time or something, you know. So it's not that hard. I'm willing to bend, and seems to be good.
Yes, sir.
The only other solutions that we are already planning to implement that feels pertinent to mention is we just had a meeting last night with our volunteers about where we're manning our volunteer people and our staff people. I mean, I personally, for the final week, am out here, addressing the gridlock and trying to direct cars and, accommodate residents and put up blockages. We talked about closing the road as kind of our preference as well, to just clarify that. I went and talked to our neighbors about, putting out a resident parking sign for the final days of performances, to try to remedy that in the moment as best we could, and to have a more permanent solution there. And then as far as speeding goes, at the time of registration, we'll be asking for license plates of the cars doing pickup and drop off, so that then when we get those pictures of, you know, this person was really trailing into town, then we know we can look it up and address it at the head, which, you know, those seem like some of the best things that are in our control that we can implement and want to. So, just on our end, that's our current plan already, and we're of course open to whatever else needs to be accommodated outside of the rounding jurisdiction.
That parking workshop.
Yeah.
Can you be there and we can?
That's on the list. Isn't that on the list, Gary, parking?
For the last
Workshops?
20 years.
Yes.
Joel, I have to say, it's been really great to hear your point of view on things, because I know all of our neighbors' point of view on a lot of this, but it's been really great to hear from you.
Thanks. Yeah, and I'll give my contact info to whomever. As I said, I know every hour that we're hoping to use the auditorium in 2026 and could provide that now. So I'm not withholding any info and hope to collaborate on it.
I think we owe a round of applause to Eric, because I really think that you.
Well done.
So I mean, I think we did solve the world's problems, so I think we gathered some useful information for some things we need to focus on. I think when this board, we need to go back and sit down and make some decisions and think about some of these things. So from that standpoint, from being on the board standpoint, I think this was very helpful. So thank you for everybody's input.
Sure.
Everybody was very quiet and clear and all those kind of things, so thank you very much. It was a good session.
Village board members, shall we postpone the second part of the discussion?
Who is actually on board back here?
It's working.
5 o'clock.
Eric put us in the back.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for coming